Hi, this is Maya, and this is my final presentation for the Intro to International Econ semester project. So, just as a quick overview, the countries that I chose to look at were the United States, Germany, and Japan. And I thought it would be best if I talked a little bit about the trade statistics, some import and export trends, and why they could be happening, and then some current and future opportunities and threats. So, to start off with the trade statistics, one of the largest things that I looked at the first iteration of this project was the trade balance. This showed us that the United States had a negative trade balance of negative 2.9, Germany had a positive trade balance of 6.2, and Japan actually had a trade balance of 0. And I thought this was pretty interesting because this means that the United States has a trade deficit, Germany has a trade surplus, and Japan is neutral. So a trade deficit is just when a country imports more than it exports, and a trade surplus is when a country exports more than it imports. And I thought it was really interesting that Japan was exactly neutral. And then another value that I thought was really interesting looking at this project was the Big Mac index. So for all of these countries, if you look at the United States, you can see that it's undervalued compared to the euro and the CNY, and it's overvalued compared to the Great British Pound and the Japanese yen. So if you look at uh, the euro, you could see that that's overvalued for all of them. And then for Japan, it's undervalued for all of them. So there's a little bit of a spectrum there between the countries, which was really cool to look at. And then one more thing that I did want to note was that all three countries use a free floating framework for their exchange rate, but Japan focuses more on inflation targeting along with that free floating framework. And then just to touch on some import and export trends. So as we can see, the US tends to trade with countries that are similar to it, with products that are also similar. So we saw that products related to machinery are one of the largest imports and exports throughout the year. And this can actually illustrate that intra-industry trade because similar products are being exported and imported. And the reason that this trade could happen is because of product differentiation. So the US could import specialized machinery and export machinery that another country, I'm sorry, it could export specialized machinery and then import machinery that another country specializes in. And then we also saw the US trades the most with Canada and Mexico. And this can be explained by the gravity model because it outlines how low barriers of trade can help promote trade. So, for example, Mexico and Canada are geographical neighbors, meaning that there will be less transportation costs associated with trade. So, the US will be more likely to trade with them. And then finally, we also saw that the US consistently has the highest trade balance with aircrafts and the smallest trade balance with electrical machinery. And this can be an example of intra-industry trade because the US specializes in machinery related to aircrafts, but still needs to import machinery related to electrical components. So although both of them technically classify as machinery, the product differentiation is what leads to trade. So now looking at Germany, some of the regularities that continue the trends for Germany can be explained from what we learned in lectures. So we saw that Germany remains to be a strong exporter of vehicles and a prominent importer of vehicles. So it might seem strange that they would export and import the same commodity, but as we learned, intra-industry trade illustrates that small product differentiations is what leads to trade. So this means that Germany may specialize in one aspect of vehicle manufacturing, but would still need to trade with another country that specializes in another aspect of vehicle manufacturing. And then we saw that Germany continues to trade the most with the United States, France Netherlands, Austria, and Italy. And the fact that France, Netherlands, Austria, and Italy are prominent trading partners with Germany can be explained with the gravity model. And just again, the gravity model tells us that countries that are close together, such as these European countries, have lower barriers of trade since there are less transportation costs required, so they end up trading more. And when Germany trades with the United States, this also falls under the gravity model because both the United States and Germany have large economies. And the gravity model also indicates that a large national income can lead to a higher demand of products and therefore more variety. So trade is encouraged between those countries. And then focusing on Japan now, we saw that vehicles, electrical machinery, and organic chemicals were consistently in the top imports and exports. And due to intra-industry trade, we know that it's normal for a country to import and export the same goods, and we know that trade still occurs because there is product differentiation. And then we saw that Japan exports and imports the most with China, the US, Korea, and other Asian countries. And similar to the United States and Germany, the gravity model can explain this because a small geographical distance means that less resources have to go into transportation. So the barrier of trade is pretty low, and this promotes trade between those countries. And then in regards to Japan's trade with the United States, this falls under the other aspect of the gravity model, which says that big economies are more likely to have more trade because it increases the variety of products involved. And then finally, we saw that Japan consistently has the largest trade balance for vehicles and the smallest for minerals. And this means that they export more vehicles and import more minerals. And this could be due to economies of scale, where the cost of producing an extra vehicle is smaller since the foundations of the manufacturing facilities are already in Japan. So this means that Japan is more likely to produce vehicles and therefore more able to export vehicles. So the cost of acquiring minerals could be relatively large, which means there's a higher opportunity cost to mine minerals, leading to Japan importing minerals and exporting vehicles. So just to go kind of quickly through the current and future opportunities and threats, this also goes along with the trends for all of the countries for the past 20 years. So to begin, we have China's share in total exports. And for all countries, it's trending upwards and it's relatively high. It's the highest in Japan, as you can see in the percentage of total exports. And then the imports is also similar. There's a little more fluctuation in terms of the fully increasing. As you can see, like 2015, they all trend kind of downwards. And then for China's share in total imports, again, it kind of trends upwards. And then India's share in total imports also trends upwards. So that this means that over the past 20 years, the United States, Germany, and Japan have increased overall trade with both China and India. And then this is continuing to be able to be seen when you look at the main products imported from China. So for all three countries, the United States, Germany, and Japan, their highest imports from China was electrical machinery. And then their highest exports to China varied a little bit more. It was electrical machinery in the United States, vehicles in Germany, and then nuclear reactors for Japan. But the United States and Germany both have nuclear reactors as their second highest imports. And then looking at India, for Germany and Japan, the highest import from India was organic chemicals, and for United States, it was natural cultured products. And then the main products exported were mineral fuels in the United States, nuclear reactors in Germany, and in Japan, it was nuclear reactors as well. So all this has shown us is that it's typically the same or similar products that are the highest exports within the countries. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as well. So for the conclusions, I had the USA, Germany, and Japan trended very similarly. And the reason I say this is because they're all three of them are really large economies and they're relatively stable. So through the past 20 years, they have increased trade with China and India, but not so much to make it a threat. So because of this, I focus more on why certain trade trends are happening rather than how to fix it because all these economies are really stable. So my main takeaways from this project, I was able to compare different countries, and I thought this was really interesting because it's something that is really useful that I can apply, to any country moving forward. And it was also really nice to learn where to find data for these projects because I hadn't heard of Contrade or the World Bank. So it was really interesting to see all the different factors that we could find for it. And then it was really interesting to see the applications of real world data because sometimes in lectures and when you're learning it, it's so simplified that it's hard to see how it could be applied in real life. But it was very cool to be able to actually apply what we learned in lecture to this project. So that's what I had for my project. Thank you so much.